So we have the absolute tiniest amount of scarlet blood, and the idea with this is going to be to paint in the middle section of the back. Typically the middle part of the seat is going to get more use than the extremities, so it's just going to darken that area up a bit, and then just going to go around the button area because that's where the cloth would press in. Okay, and also just going to do a little bit of the top there. Obviously this is a pretty heavy wear area because it's the mouth. Okay, that's kind of given that a little bit more wear. I'm hoping that this burnt sienna colour is going to be a wide enough contrast, so I'll just do a little bit, so I've washed out the brush. I think that should look alright. It's one of those less is more sort of things sometimes. So. I don't want to overdo it, but obviously there are going to be areas that are going to have seen some wear and tear. Actually, got some brass on there. I didn't even realise. Probably did it with my hand, I would say. Not now, I don't have any brass on my hands now, but previously, so I'll have to do some touch-up work to fix that off. I need to worry about under the chair, I think. Alrighty, so that's a little bit of weathering effects. Especially happy how the darker colours worked on the back of the seat. I think that looks really, really good. Probably going to do some kind of like black or dark wash with the tongue, because I think the tongue is too bright and clean looking. Just going to have to be a little bit careful not to go too far off the chair. Otherwise I'm going to have to do touch-up works. Alright. That's definitely enough. I wouldn't want to go heavier than that. So now that the detail painting on the pot of gold is done, so I redid the eye slits a little bit to make those a bit clearer after I did the second orange coat. I did also a couple of touch-ups on the pot of gold at the top, so the detail painting is pretty much all done. So now what I've got is some of the scarlet red, so like a deep red, that I'm just going to do a bit of dry brushing with. So obviously very small amount of paint. I don't want to overdo what I've already done, but the aim is to kind of like bloody up the mouth and the teeth a bit. So I don't want to be too strong with it, and also the tongue. So I'm going to kind of dark red tone is the plan. Just gives a bit of texture and contrast, which is what you always want with these things. You don't want it to be nice, clean, white teeth. That was never the plan. Add a little bit more. It's so easy to overdo these types of techniques. But it can also make a huge difference. Okay, so plan, unlike the mimic chair where I went with like a black option, which I do actually quite like how that's turned out, but the theme of this model is more like a blood red. So that's why I want to go more red tone. So it highlights any imperfections though, so that's another thing you have to be aware of. So like I'm fine doing this on small pointy teeth, for example, but I wouldn't be doing it on the smooth sides because there are layer lines and it's just going to highlight those. Yes, that's much more like the end effect that I'm looking for. He's a monster after all. Okay, so that's the pot of gold mimic finished. That was just like the last final touch to just put the bloody effect over the teeth and the tongue and a little bit of the gums as well. So I've only got one mimic left to finish off. So I did start some weathering effects on the wingback chair mimic, but I need to do more, especially around the buttons, and I did do some highlights around the wood as well, but I want that to look even more weathered. So I'm very happy with how that tongue's turned out, so I'm not going to touch that or the teeth. Very happy with the brass look, so it's getting there, but yes, we will come back and work on the wingback chair a bit. So just doing some final touches on the wing chair model. There's several ways that you can do colour blending and tones, and obviously the most popular way of doing it is with what they call a wet palette. I am not a fan of wet palettes. I have issues with mold. That's not too bad. So this is the fabric colour, but just with the tiniest amount of black, which I put down before and then put the fabric colour on top of. So that's just a darker shade of the fabric colour, basically, is what you're wanting. Now for this I am going to want a tiny fine brush, so you will do. And then you get a phone call, and of course your paint all dries up on you. Always the way. Let's see if any of this is recoverable at all. Oh, yes. So, yes, if you didn't get it from my first talk about it, I am not a fan of wet palettes. So, butcher's paper, obviously, it doesn't keep the paint wet for like, a day or however long they claim that the wet palettes keep the paint wet for. Obviously that works really, really well. I have used wet palettes in the past, and yes, they do keep the paint wet for an incredibly long time. So that, it isn't bullshit. It is actually true that those do work fine, but I don't know. I just have so many problems with the mold that it kind of detracts from the general usability of the wet palette. So hence why I am not a fan. So what I've done here is I've just kind of put a bit in the middle of the button where obviously it would get warm the most by people pressing against it. And I've done like a little quarter circle around the bottom of the button because, obviously if we work in a situation of light coming from the top down, that would be darker. So it's a little bit of shading. And now all I'm doing is just doing a little bit of kind of like crack lines radiating out from the button where the button's been constantly pushed backwards and forwards against the chair. So, you know, it would kind of crack and split and radiate out some darkness. So because this is the darker color, it's obviously also going to add some dark tones, and so I'll just do some general kind of like crack lines. Not something that you want to be straight or uniform, but just kind of gives it a little bit of texture. And when it dries, it will kind of fade a little bit anyway. I've got some stretch marks on the cushion itself. Yeah, it does make a difference. I mean, just looking at one side that you've done versus the other side where you haven't done, it just adds a little bit of depth. And what I have is almost completely dried out, so it wasn't the best time to get a phone call from my darling, but I'm not gonna not talk to her when you get the opportunity. She's having fun over in Japan, so nice to catch up on how things are going with the family. Just try and smudge out a little bit of that sharp definition, because you don't really want it to be sharp, you want it to be kind of muted, smudged, like I say. Okay, that actually is not looking too bad. So, like, put the lines down first, but then go over it and just kind of smudge it all, pressing hard with the brush that's got basically nothing left on it. So you're just kind of smudging the lines. Probably not the greatest thing to do to the brush, but the effect actually is like a very light dry brush, and just smudges some of the detail of what you put on. So I'm actually really happy with how that's looking. So now obviously I need to do some weathering on the wood part as well, and you're not going to see anything that's like black or dark. So for that I was thinking we would have to go to a light brown. And get rid of you. This is raw sienna. And the idea, of course, is to add age and wear to the chair. It's not a brand new manufactured item, so just add a bit of distress to it. Okay. I was watching one of my favourite YouTubers that had just got himself a bamboo H2D, and he unfortunately had a lot of issues for it. I mean, for such an expensive piece of equipment, there seemed to be some damage in the shipping of it to him, so by the time he got it, it was all kind of damaged, like the glass plate had broken. And of course, you know, you'd put in a complaint to Bamboo, and I'm sure that they would replace stuff like that. But the most important thing is that it seemed to affect like some bolts that held the bed, So one of them in particular was raised, and when he tried to do the calibration, you can see the points at which it digs into his plate. I've had that happen to me, and that is not fun. Watching that, hearing that. So I'm sure it all got sorted out. And he did get some good prints that he was able to show. And yeah, that was all fine. It's an amazing bit of kit, don't get me wrong. I'm happily have one. But yeah, it's not on the budget anytime soon. But yes, they asked him, oh, did he want a replacement, you know, like whole machine? But then what happens if there's issues in the shipping of the whole machine to him? So I think by the sounds of things, he just ended up going to get the replacement parts and go that way, go that route. Yes, it wasn't a seamless experience for him, which kind of, I guess, explained why his H2D video was out way later than everyone else's. Like, I kept on hanging out, oh, what's he going to say about it? What's he going to say about it? And there was no videos. I'm like, what's going on? And yes, I know he's posted this video with the dramas he's had with it. I was like, okay, well, that explains why his review of it was so much later. Just targeting the corner of this chair, obviously. An old chair would have been moved many, many times, and it's kind of like the corner areas that would get the most damage. And when you first put the paint on, you kind of go, it's way too strong, because it is, and it is way too strong. But that's fine, because you can just kind of keep rub and rub and rub and work it in a bit, and then all of a sudden it doesn't look too strong. Alrighty, so that is some wear and tear on the fabric and on the wood, and don't think there's much more left to do. Just try and darken those teeth up a bit. They're a bit too bright, so I'll just do a small wash on them, and then yeah, the chair is pretty much done. So I'm quite happy with how the models turned out. So there's nice and gleaming gold coins on top on the pot of gold mimic, and he's got his bloody mouth and teeth. So quite happy with how they turned out. Even happy with the darker rings on both sides of the model. Think that they give it a nice bit of texture as well. So yes, all in all, very good. And And of course also happy with the wingback chair. So I gave it a distressed look, so you can kind of see that on the sides and on the fabric. And I zoom in a bit closer. He's got, you know, a really gnarly sort of tongue, which I like, rather than the clean sort of tongue, distressed around the fabric. So yes, all in all, very happy with how they turned out.